We're going to be talking about procurement fraud with Dave Oswald, the expert in forensic accounting. Dave, procurement fraud. I know this is one of your favorites. You love to untangle a messy ball of procurement fraud, get into business, find out where the money is. Because sometimes we're not talking pocket change, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, Andy, it's unfortunate, but procurement fraud is one of those frauds. It's probably one of the more difficult frauds to find, and it's because of the nature of the fraud. I'll talk you through one case that I worked on. We were working for a company in the transport sector, and they had a lot of vehicles that they had, and they spent a lot of money every year on maintenance. Around about $100 million a year spent on maintenance, so a big company. And what basically happened is their buyer went down to a conference in the States, and he met up with a young, at the time should have been 18, 19-year-old. He was about 40 years old, and she turned around to him and said, look, if you put some business with me, I'll make you happy. So he worked out a scheme with her that he would start buying about $100,000 worth of product from her. The product was probably only valued at about 60, 70,000, but she made him happy, and away they went.
Well, question quickly. How do we know it was her and not him that suggested this?
It could have been either.
So it's quite wise for a 19-year-old.
Yeah. I think she was new in the business. I think she was new in the business, and she wanted to grow a business. And I think she was a street smart girl, so she knew what was happening. It might have been the other way around, but he might have said to her, look, I'll put some business with you if you make me happy. And she might have agreed to that, but it definitely takes two to tango. But anyway, the affair went on for a few months, and she decided to leave the company that she was with and move to a new company. And so he obviously moved his business across to the new company. The old company phoned him up and said, hey, what are you doing? Why have you moved business across from one company to the other company? And he had a look at it. He said to them, well, look, I'm sorry, guys, but you can't give me the same fringe benefits that I was getting from her. So that's why I've moved my business across. So they then turned around and said, well, sir, we can't give you those benefits because we don't have any other good-looking 19-year-old girls running around who would be willing to go with you. But what we can do is we can give you some money so you can go out and buy some girls who would be willing to do that. And he thought that this was quite a good idea, so they started paying him a commission on all of the stock that he bought from them. Quite quickly, it worked out that other companies, at these conferences, people talk, and somebody said, oh, well, I'm buying from Joe, and all I have to do is pay him 10%, and we're making a fortune out of him. And so the next company went up to Joe and said, hey, can we sell you on the same terms as company A? And he accepted. And quite quickly, he was up to providing a number of companies with buying from a number of companies, getting probably substandard parts at an expensive price, and was paying for them, and everything in his book was happy. The The problem was his scheme had got so big that he had to include other people in his scheme. And one of those people, his assistant, said, "But why are we giving all of this money to these guys? Why don't we open up our own company and do the same thing?" They thought, this is a great idea, and they opened up 2 companies. Well, quite quickly, they worked up to $1 million sale in each of these companies. And then he got worried because he thought, gee, if this goes above $1 million, then the owner's going to want to come through and meet this company that we're buying so much stock from. So it would be a bit embarrassing if he walked in and I put up my hand and said, "I'm the owner." So
Awkward.
he started opening up more and more companies. Well, by the time we caught up with him, he had 24 companies that were providing him backhands, and he had 6 companies that he owned. The total
So
amount
not
that
a small, not a small fraud.
no, the total amount he defrauded the company for is about $20 million over a 5-year period. Over about a 5-year period.
One noticed that. How do you steal that amount over a 5-year period?
When people question what the expenses, it was just, well, this is what parts are costing nowadays. And that was it. Nobody. The one interesting part is that they were doing data analytics on their sales, on their, not sales, on their maintenance. But because the fraud was increasing a little bit every year, they looked at it and they said, okay, our maintenance was, 10 million in this area, now it's 10.5 million. Oh, that's just inflation. And no, it wasn't inflation, it was actually him stealing. And then the next year they looked at 10.5 to 11.2 and they said, oh, well, that's just inflation. But again, it wasn't inflation, it was him stealing. So if they'd had a look from 10 to 11.2 million, they might have said, oh, we've got a problem here. But because it had taken place and growing slowly over a period of time, so when they did their analytics, it's not that much different from the month before or the year before, and so it's okay. And this is where statistics and analytics can give you a false sense of security.
I think they're looking for fraud, right? And you said, no.
Nope.
That's why.
Okay, so auditors are primarily there to look and make sure that the balance sheet and income statement are accurate. Not accurate, but are a fair reflection of what happened, and in particular the balance sheet. So what an auditor is there to do is to say to you that if you were to invest in this company and you are to rely on their financial statements, are their financial statements correct enough that it would not change your decision to invest in the company? And that's what an audit really is. It's not correct, it's correct enough. There's a thing called materiality, but as we'll see, I mean, Ernst & Young walked past 1.7 billion euro fraud at Wirecard. So it's really, materiality doesn't always play in. But we'll talk about Wirecard in another episode, because that's also fascinating.
You could just go through the process of being brought to attention, and then what your process was of coming in and going, there's something funny.
In this particular case, there's a whistleblower who asked why we were buying so many parts from one supplier. And that was what raised the alarm bell. We were then contacted and asked to go in and have a look. And the first thing we did is we analyzed the business case that was taking place, and we found that there was no business case for what was happening. And that was kind of the biggest breakthrough in the case, because that showed because that showed that there was not a genuine reason for what they were doing. And that led us to believe that the fraud was a big fraud. We then imaged computers, which is making a digital copy of the computers. We had a look at a whole bunch of emails, and through that we were able to ascertain that this is what had occurred, and we were able to figure out exactly who he had bought from, how much he'd bought for, and we were able to prove probably, I don't know, $3-4 million of the fraud. But the rest was an extrapolation of that fraud, because we knew that the same thing was happening with all the other products that had been purchased. Unfortunately, fraudsters don't keep a log of every single transaction that they do, which is sad.
A fraud folder on their desktop that says fraud. Do not enter.
Some of them do, believe it or not. But anyway, that's another story for another day.